guys, welcome to video 2 for today's lesson. This is where we are going to do some practice problems together so that you can be ready for your quiz. If you still have questions after you go through these practice problems with me, feel free to come into the practice room and I will help you. When you are done with these practice problems, if you feel like you're ready to take your quiz, go ahead and do that. You are the one who knows if you understand this or not. Okay, so it's up to you to make sure that if you don't get it and you don't think you're going to do well on your quiz, like if you're consistently not understanding the practice problems, then please come and practice with me. Okay, if you're consistently understanding the practice problems, you're getting them right every time, then you are probably ready to take your quiz. Okay, so this first group of practice problems is finding the slope by graphing and counting. Okay, so we're going to find the slope of the line by counting the rise over the run. Okay, so remember, we always count the change in the y-axis. That's the top of our fraction. That's our rise. Okay, and then the change in the x-axis, that is going to be the bottom of our fraction. That is our run. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this one right here, number 1. You need to know how to find the slope by graphing and counting, and you need to know how to find the slope by the slope formula for your quiz. Okay, so in order to find the slope by graphing and counting, let's identify 2 points that are on the line. You can see that there's 2 that have already been picked for you. Okay, so now we're going to figure out how we have to move to get from here to here. Okay, and we always do the change in y first. So that means we're going to figure out how many we have to move up or down along this y-axis. If we move up, that's going to be positive. If we move down, that's going to be negative. So from here to here, notice we're moving up and to the right. Okay, so let's count what that movement is. So 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So 4 up. Okay, and then from here, this is where we ended, to the right, 2. So our slope would be 4 over 2. And we can actually change that to a positive 2 if we want. Okay, the fraction would actually be 2 over 1. And if we were to move from here up 2 to the right 1, see how we still land on the line, up 2 to the right 1. Okay, so for question number 1, the slope would be 2 over 1. You need to have these practice problems written down as part of what you're turning into me today. Okay, so if you don't have a piece of paper out yet, please do that right now. Make sure that you have each of these practice problems written down, and then at the end, after you have all of the practice problems written down, you're going to do your quiz. Okay, number 2, we want to find the slope of this line. Okay, we've got this point right here. We've got this point right here. So we're going to find this by graphing and counting. The graph's already been done. So now we just need to figure out how we're going to move to get from here to here. Okay, this time we're moving down and to the right. Okay, so our top number is going to be a negative and our bottom number is going to be a positive. Okay, so to get from here to here, we have to move down. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to move down 5. Okay, so the top number is going to be a negative 5. And then from here, we have to move to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 5 to the right 4, that would be our slope, negative 5 over positive 4. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have a point here and we have a point here. Okay, this time we are moving up and to the right. So let's count our change in y. Okay, so let's count our vertical change first, and then we're going to count our horizontal change. So to get from here to here, we have to move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're moving up 7. And then to get from here to here, we're moving to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so remember, if you move up, it's positive. If you move down, it's negative. If you move to the right, it's positive. If you move to the left, it's negative. Okay, so let's look at the next one, number 4. Remember, you are doing these with me on your own piece of paper here. You're following along. So if we want to figure out the slope of line number 4, we've got a point here and we've got a point here. Okay, so this time, notice you're moving down and to the right. Okay, so you know your top number is going to be negative because you're moving to the down, and your bottom number is going to be positive. So we move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. Okay, so that's going to be a negative 7. And then from here to here, we're going to move to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope of this line is negative 7 over 4. Okay, next one. Look at the next one. We're moving up and to the right. Okay, so let's count it. From here to here, we have to move up 1, 2, 3. Up 3. That's going to be a positive 3, top of our fraction. The bottom of our fraction is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, positive 5. Okay, so we moved up and to the right. Our slope is positive 3 over positive 5. Let's do one more of these, and then I'm going to do some practice with you on using the slope formula. Okay, so to move from here to here, we're moving down and to the right. Okay, remember, anytime you move down, it's going to be negative. Anytime you move to the right, it's going to be positive. So how do we move to get from here to here? Well, we have to move down 2 and to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now this fraction can actually be simplified. 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 8 4 times. This and this are the same, okay? If I move down 1 to the right 4, see how I land on the line still? Down 1 to the right 4. So either one of these are acceptable answers. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about and learn about how, and practice actually, how to find slope using the slope formula. And I'm going to actually put this in a space where I can write it a little bit bigger. So the slope formula says if we take the y from our second point minus the y from our first point, that's going to give us the top number of our fraction for our slope. And then we take the x of the second point, we minus the x of our first point, that's going to give us our change in x, or the bottom number of our fraction for our slope. Okay, so we're going to be using this formula to find slope. So in order to use this formula, we need to identify the y of the second point, the y of the first, the x of the second point, the x of the first. So let's go ahead and do that. This right here is my first point. So this is going to be the x of my first, the y of my first. And my pen sucks today, you guys. So that's a y. This is going to be the x of my second point, the y of my second point. And that's supposed to be a 2. Okay, so here we go. We're going to plug into this formula, which says we take the y of the second point, which in this case, it's a 6. We subtract the y of our first point, which in this case, that is a negative 3. That's the top number of our fraction, okay? And then we take the x of our second point, which is negative 1. We subtract the x of our first point, which is 5, and now we simplify. And you guys, please, 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 please get out your calculators, okay? Doing these integer operations are hard for lots of you, and that's okay. But don't let that get in the way of you getting the right answer. So take the 2 seconds it takes to get out a calculator, plug these into the calculator, okay? 6 minus a negative 3. That is going to be like 6 adding a positive 3, so that's 9. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. Okay, so the slope is 9 over negative 6. We can simplify this if we want. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 6, -2. Both of these are correct answers. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one, 7, 1, and 4, 8. I'm going to just write this on a new page so that I can just write big as I want. So if we're going to find the slope of the line between these 2 points using the slope formula, okay, here's the slope formula. We first identify our x of our first point, our y of our first point, the x of our second point, the y of our second point, okay? Once we have labeled our points, now we just plug into this formula exactly like it is. So instead of the y2, we plug in 8. Instead of the y1, we plug in 1. Instead of the x2, we plug in 4. And instead of the x1, we plug in 7. Now we just simplify. So get out your calculator. 8 minus 1 is 7. 4 minus 7 is -3. So this is the slope, 7 over -3. Okay, so for this one, 7 over -3. That's our slope, and we found it using the slope formula. Okay, let's do a couple more of these. I'm going to do number 5. That says -8, 2, and 3, 5. Okay, so if I want to find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points using the slope formula, which is the y of the second point minus the y of the first over the x of the second point minus the x of the first, I'm first going to label my points. This is the x of my first, the y of my first. This is the x of my second, the y of my second. Now all I do is plug this in for this in for this, x2, the x of my second point goes in for this, and the x of my first point goes in for this. Okay, and you guys can do that really easily. So instead of y2, the y of my second point is a 5 minus y1, the y of my first point is a 2, over x2, the x of my second point is a 3, minus the x of my first point, which we can see is a -8. Now we just simplify. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 minus a -8 is 11. So the slope of this line is 3 over 11. And we found it without having to graph and count. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more. -5, 3, 1, 10. Okay, so to find slope using the slope formula, we use the slope formula that says the y of the second point minus the y of the first over the x of the second point minus the x of the first gives us our fraction for our slope. Okay, so let's label our points. X of our first point, y of our first point, x of our second point, y of our second point. Okay, instead of the y2 in our formula, we're going to plug in 10. So 10 minus, instead of the y1 in our formula, the y of our first point is a 3. Instead of the x of the second point, we're going to plug in a 1. And instead of the x of our first point, we're going to plug in a -5. So 10 minus 3 is 7. 1 minus -5 is 6. Okay. So at this point, we just did lots of problems on how to find slope by graphing and counting, and how to find slope using the slope formula. If you would like to join me in breakout room number 2, I would be happy to practice some more problems with you. Or if you're ready to take your quiz right now, go ahead and do that. Make sure you send me your practice problems and then also your quiz questions, okay? Have a great day if I don't see you in the practice room, and I will see you not next week, but the very next Monday at 8:30 sharp, okay? See you guys.